So at this time, we give you Bo Brown, and he's going to tell you some stories.
Well, I had about 24 hours to prep for this thing, so I've had an extremely, really busy 2 weeks. A lot of you know I'm doing this primitive skills stuff. We just had the biggest event of our year last weekend, and it was the 20th annual, so there's about 300 or 400 people out there for about a 4-day thing. And so anyway, I started putting this together, and I was going to name all the bands that I'd played with, and I got through there, and it's like getting in the 60 and 70. I thought, that's not going to do. I'll do the ones that I just played a lot of gigs with. So started out with, I think the first band I ever played with was in, what was that, 68. So that tells you a little bit there. It's called the Chaparrals. I'm so glad there are no recordings of that stuff, because it was just a horrible stuff. We were doing Louie Louie and just stuff that we could do at our level of expertise, which is 3 chords and really easy. So didn't get too far, played a couple of shows with that. Had another one called Rock Earth. That's when we discovered the heavy stuff like Hendrix and all that kind of stuff. So we were trying to do that for a while. Didn't do a lot with those bands. We played a few shows around, but just didn't have big followings. We weren't really very good, so not surprised. And then in 1971, fall of 1971, I moved to Kansas City to go to electronics school. Ended up getting with a band up there called Woodrose, and we did some pretty good shows there. Again, it was pretty low-level stuff. And then on an odd note, about 1987, I played in a band called Rosewood. So it's just like, it's hard to come up with good band names. So really the first band that I played with that did much of anything, and a lot of you guys know Rural Chapel. Everybody knows Rural. And Alan, his brother, they had a band called Spillwater Junction that had a couple of horns and a bass player and drummer. Well, Alan, Rule's brother, is a drummer. And that they got rid of the horns, and we got this little guy, bass player, a little 15-year-old Hispanic kid named Carl Garner, playing bass for us. And that's the first time I started making money playing. And we were playing clubs and little like I said, little nightclub gigs and frat parties and stuff like that, making $75 to $100 a night, which is what I still make playing a gig now. Seriously, that's how far that's come. So that's nothing else stays the same, but except musician wages. So we had a good long run, and I guess that was around 73, 74. Then I met this fella, and I ended up rooming with this fella named Doug Sheridan, and he was talking about this big festival out in Kansas called the Winfield, the Walnut Valley Festival in Winfield, Kansas. How many hands of Winfield people? Yeah. So I wasn't really, I was still a rock player, and he told me about it, and he says, man, they play banjos and stuff. I don't want to go to that. And he says, yeah, but there's women out the wazoo. Done, I'm on my way. So I went to that with him in, I think it's 74 or something like that, and saw Mark O'Connor win the guitar picking championship. I was in the crowd, and oh my God, I just couldn't believe that was being done on an acoustic guitar. So that just pretty much spun my whole world around. I quit playing electric guitar. I went full on acoustic, playing bluegrass stuff, and just that was my world for a lot of years there. So went through several bands there during that period. I was in one called Duckburg Times. That's where I met Dave Wilson. I ended up playing in, I'm now in my 5th band, I think, of playing with him over the years. Every year I said it wouldn't do it again, and every year another band comes along, he's in it, and it's just too good to not do. So anyway, we did that for quite a while. Let's see. After Duckburg, then I started doing a lot more. I think Bob and I had a band together with Tom Whitrock, and who else was in? Marley Brothers, yeah. Turn It Up? What? Oh yeah. So anyway, that we played. What did we play? One gig. yeah. So, but I loved the name because there was only one Bledsoe in it, and But then I got my first full-time gig playing bluegrass at Silver Dollar City with a band called the Arkamo Rangers. And a lot of you remember a band, a young kid band around here called Arkamo Rangers. I came up to Dave Harp after I heard that they were doing this, and I said, I told you these stories about Silver Dollar City, and you stole my band name from back then. And he says, no. He says, I think my dad played in that band. And I said, your dad wasn't in that band. I said, and so I talked to Chip Ballard about, what this kid, and he says, well, come to think of it, when we were putting the band together, Ron Harp was playing banjo for it, but we got the gig at Silver Dollar City, and he couldn't leave his Associated Grocers gig, so we got you. So we were the Arkamo Rangers. We were there, I think, for 2 weeks, and D.A. Calloway rechristened us the Delirious Brothers for probably obvious reasons. There was a goat pen in the center of the park, and we spent a lot of time in the goat pen. So Silver Dollar City was, I think I started there 75 and played there off and on with different groups till about 1983. I played in a band with Dale Hopkins, Kenny Richardson, I think Pat Jackson was in it, called Itchy Whiskers. That was a real good band. Then I think around 77, through Dale Hopkins, I met Johnny Kendrick, and we started just the three of us just picking and playing fiddle tunes with Dale. Dale was a contest fiddler, and he had trained me up to be his rhythm player, and was just a hell of a teacher. I mean, just every time we'd play, he'd stop and say, "You're rushing," or "You're dragging," and just make me play on tempo and play what he needed to those contests. So we were traveling around winning these contests. So that was back when every little town that had a celebration of any kind, the apple butter making days type thing of every little town that has, they would have a fiddle contest, and some of it pay a few $100s, some of it paid a few $1,000s. And there was about 6 guys that just traveled this whole circuit, and they were always the ones competing against each other. And they had it down to a science. They would learn who was judging. They would know the tastes of the judge. They knew that this judge here didn't like blackberry blossom. If you played that for this judge, he would give you low marks. So they would tailor exactly what they played to the judges. So we had a good time doing that. And like I said, in the process, met John Kendrick. The three of us started playing quite a bit, just old fiddle tunes. Just as that's where I kind of got into the whole bluegrass flat picking thing and kind of honed my chops with that. Then at one point, John and I just decided we just need to get a band doing this stuff, because he had the most unique style I'd ever heard. He was originally, I think, a horn player or something, and learned the banjo the way you would learn a real instrument. and he didn't play the Scruggs style. He did it chromatically, and so I loved his style. So I said, well, I played in a band before with this guy named Dave Wilson. He might be up for doing it. And then eventually we got a hold of George Horn and Rick Davidson, and like I said, the first few gigs, I don't even think we had the full band at that point, but every show we played was under a different name. We were the AAA string band for a while. We were the Bluegrass Gods for one show. Just some ignorant stuff. But that finally gelled and turned into one of the most wonderful experiences I've ever had. We, like Bob said, we ended up getting NECAA. Yeah, getting those college tours. And the first one, I think we won some kind of a prize for getting the most bookings of any band in that whole conference. And then we did it second year doing the concert stage. And in the process, we started making more contacts and got to open for Emmylou Harris about 4 times, opening for people like Juice Newton and Leon Russell, and just playing some really big concert stuff for us. And I think my most memorable show was the Uptown Theater opening for Emmylou. And it was that's as close as you can get to the big stuff for what I'd want to do anyway. But at the time, we were still playing full days at Silver Dollar City. On into 82, we were just killing it. We were playing 5 days a week, all summer long at Silver Dollar City. Then sometimes 2 and 3 nights a week, we'd jump in the van and go drive 100 miles and play a nightclub somewhere else. had a sound man that would go ahead of us and set the PA up. So we just had to leave the stage, grab our instrument, jump in the van, go, walk on stage, plug in, play till whenever, come back and do it again. And just after that much, it just really started taking a toll on all of us. So just got to the point where we weren't getting along, and there was some, just some personality things going on that just, it was just getting untenable. So Dave was the first one. He ended up getting married, and so left the band to go raise a family. So that was kind of the first crippling blow there. And then George, I think John had some family issues. He had to move back to his farm in Nevada. And eventually Rick and I were the only original members, and it just never did have that oomph that it did with the original band, so we finally let it go. Then that year, I think that was the fall of '83 or something like that, I was so burned out with music, I never wanted to touch another. I didn't want to do it ever again at that point. I just was so let down because I dreamed all my life of being a musician and traveling and seeing the world, and I got, basically got to see the center of the U.S., but in that process, I saw the inside of the van, the road through the windshield, stages, motel rooms. And, if you're out on the road to 5 guys, you have to play every single day. And every day you're not playing, you're still eating up resources at the same rate that when you're not. So you have to make every day a gig day. And so there really wasn't much time. We had one vehicle, so I was wanting to get out to see all these nature spots and everything and go hiking and whatnot. And, the guys would sleep till noon, and then the decision would be, we're going to go to the music store for the afternoon. So I saw a lot of music stores, and so I was really disillusioned by the whole band and travel thing at that point. So '84, I pretty much just took the year off. I was getting into the wilderness survival stuff at that point, and I'd been into that since about the mid-'70s. At Silver Dollar City, I met this old Indian man that was chipping arrowheads out there named Jim Fire Eagle. He just opened the world up for us, all this Stone Age living skills stuff, and stuff his grandpa had taught him. And so that whole summer, I camped out in the woods. I was foraging, living off of what I was eating because I didn't have any income. And excuse me a minute. And about the end of that year and going into early '85, I was running out of money. I had to sell the best guitar I had at the time, which was a Martin D18. I had to sell it to D.C. Cunningham to get money to pay my rent. And so at that point, I was, like I said, I was eating lentils and rice and beans and rice and stuff like that, and everything else was either out of my yard or riding my bike to James River and fishing and, just stuff like that. So in the spring of '85, a friend of mine, Jane Fitzgerald, had a bird study she was working on. It was going to be happening in Arkansas. They did it the year before that. And so she knew that I knew some of the wildlife students around, at the time, SMS. And she called me trying to get a hold of those guys. And I said, well, they already have their summer jobs, but I'd love to do that. Getting paid to hang out in the woods all summer, that doesn't get any better. She said, well, you have to have some experience. You have to have coursework, and they want a bird bander, and you really can't do that just out of the box. That's something. And she said, I don't know, put something on a resume. So I did. I put the fact that this gal, Kathy Sandell, had done about 4 or 5 days worth of bird banding outside of Rogersville at her place, and I helped her. Put that down, and I put that I'd done my kind of impromptu bird tours at Silver Dollar City. I'd carry one of those little single telescope spotting scopes, and if I was talking to one of the guests there, a summer tanager would fly by, and I'd point it out and say, check this out, So I was kind of showing people the bird life around Silver Dollar City. But then I put my wilderness survival stuff, and that I'd been practicing this stuff, and that's what got me the job, because the requirement was that you had to live on the site from, I think it was late April till the end of October. And to get paid to hang out in the woods, and I had 3 different sites. 2 I could get to with my truck, and the other, there was no road to it. I had to paddle my canoe upstream to get to the bluff shelter. So I lived in a bluff shelter about probably a third to a fourth of that summer, and the rest living out of my truck, and had a canoe to get up and down to the study sites. It was bliss, just to get paid to hang out like that. And till about I'd say the end of June, when the chiggers, ticks, the heat, everything, and it was just like all of a sudden it hit me that, oh my God, this is, you just eat up all the time. And I stepped on 2 or 3 copperheads, and it was like that. The misery kind of went on for about another 3 or 4 weeks, and then it just kind of normalized. Humans are so adaptable. Whatever you're in, you're going to normalize to it eventually. Well, it got to be where I was okay with it, and then so I got through the whole summer, and I think that winter I went to Point Reyes Bird Observatory, which was it's a long-term facility doing bird studies, and you work for free, but you get trained by the biggest names in the field. So I did that over the winter, and then came back and finished out that study the next year. And all of a sudden I had a resume, so I was getting calls, and I got into doing pesticide investigations. Some friends of mine were working on a big study in South Texas, and it's a pesticide comes up for review, and they do a field test on it and determine if it gets to stay on the market, if it's not killing too many birds. And all of a sudden I was making the best money I've ever made in my life watching birds. And so it was but those 2 summers, that's still some of my most idyllic time that I've ever had, because I had 2 and 3 week periods where I didn't see another human being. And that's most people it did get weird for me too. I noticed that whenever I'd come in for groceries into Fayetteville, I would just be in line in the grocery store and try to talk, and you just lose the little things like small talk, like being able to walk to somebody that you don't know and start a conversation. Things like shutting bathroom doors. Things like not dropping your trousers to look for a tick when you feel scratchy or something. And a lot of those things just go away pretty quick when you're not around people. So one of the funniest things is my sister Loretta, after that second year, she had me over for a chicken dinner when she lived here in Springfield, and I was all animated and telling stories. We were eating chicken, and everybody was around, and I was telling all this stuff that I'd seen, and I just finished off a chicken leg and tossed it over my shoulder, and it bounced off the wall, and everybody just stopped, and it was like, what is wrong with you? That's what I'd been doing for 2 summers. I finished, just pitch it. So little things like that do kind of sneak up on you sometimes. But anyway, I did that from 85 up until 92. That was my main living. I didn't play music hardly at all. I ended up getting with that Rosewood band in Colorado. I was out there hiking looking for a bird called a chucker. It's like a partridge thing that they had introduced over there, and I was out in the habitat of these rolling hills east of Paonia, Colorado. And I guess it's west of it. Anyway, I heard music over the hill, and I walked over this hill, and I see this big group of people and a whole bunch of stuff, and it was the end of a bike rally, and they had a stage set up and had generators running and music going. So I wandered down there out of the hills, and these 3 people were getting ready to go on stage, and I went up behind stage, and we were talking to them, and they told me what they were doing, and I said, well, I played a bit. I played in a bunch of bands at home, and they said, well, if you want to, this guy who's over here's got a mandolin. He'll loan you his mandolin. Why don't you get up and play one with us? So I got up there and played one with him, and after the end of the song, he said, would you join our band? So I did, and I played with them for 2 or 3 years after that. After I left Colorado, they flew me out there several times to open for Newgrass Revival, and we played the Taste of Colorado Festival and did some pretty good shows at that. But about in the late 90s, I just got tired of moving all the time, because these jobs are at the minimum 3 months. Most of them are 5, 6 months, 8 months sometimes. But at the end, it's done. The study's over. I did work on a few that had multiple years, but most of them were just one summer appointment, and you had to go find another job. And I was getting tired of living out. Plus, I had the idea I wanted to start this wilderness survival school. So in the late 90s, I guess 92, I was working in California and had a really good income on that one. So I saved up and bought this 10 acres out on the Niagara River, surrounded by 8,000-acre state forest at Lead Mine Conservation Area, specifically to do my workshops. So I bought that in 1990. And during that time, I was starting to come back and play with a few bands while I was here in the wintertime. And I I think one of those bands was the Mullets. You guys probably remember that. Predecessor of the Mullets was the Bluegrass Zombies from Hell. We were having our first gig with that band. It was this little pizza place that was next to what is now the Flea, which used to be Harlow's, and there was a pizza place there. And so anyway, it came out in the paper that we were playing there under that name, and the guy called us up and he said, you got to change your name. He said, that Saturday night is a big church crowd, and he said, I've already gotten 3 calls of people wondering if it's devil worship music. And the people picked up on that. I mean, the news leader picked up on that and said, is this band playing devil worship music? And they just said, yeah, they were asked to change their name. So I thought, okay, well, we can be the Bluegrass Zombies from Heck. So and they picked that up and printed that in the newspaper the next time we played. So it got a little bit of airplay anyway. But I came back in, I guess it was 92, and with the intention of starting this school. And we got it started. It's called First Earth Wilderness School. It was Red Willow Primitive Skills when we first started with Don Brink and I, the guy that was the drummer in that band with Dave Wilson called Duckburg Times. That's where I met him, and he was my backpack buddy. He was the guy that I learned all that primitive skills stuff with from Fire Eagle. And anyway, we, what was it? Oh, yeah. 92 is when the Howie and the Hillcats were playing. And so I ended up falling in with that band. We were playing in the little room before the big room was ever there at Cartoons. We were the house band. And the first year we were just playing in that tiny little dining room with Howie, myself, and Larry Teeters. Yeah. And so the next year they built a little beer garden out there and a box to keep the band equipment in, so we didn't have to take everything down. We could just shove it in the box. So for about 2 years, we were the band in the box. We were playing out there about every 2 weeks, 4 nights a week, and they did so well with that they were able to build the big room what it is now. And I think it's never recaptured the feeling that it had in that old beer garden. It was open, it had a little sunshade, but you got rained out once in a while, but still it was family friendly. There were always kids around, and it was just truly really nice. And but the Hillcats are still going. That's probably the longest term. Well, no, I guess the Undergrass Boys are technically still going too. We after about 10 years of not playing with each other with the Undergrass Boys, we just decided that's too good to not do anymore. And a lot of us had kind of grown past our stuff that we'd had. We realized we're ignorant kids, and we got over a lot of that stuff. So we started having reunions in, what was it? I think 92, I think was the first one. And there's a bit of memorabilia over there that's from some of those reunion shows. So anyway, we still get together about every few years and play a show. So I guess that's the longest term band I've been with. And Howie and the Hillcats, like I said, are still going. And let's see, what else that I've done since then? Them Dang Peckerwoods. How many of you heard of that band? That was another kind of progressive bluegrass band. No, that was he played with Les and some other guys. Peckerwoods was Andy Dye, Roger Matthews, Matt Maydew, and myself. And when Matt left, he left because the girlfriend made him leave. and Roger got in another band too. Roger and Andy were in Fly By Night, and they were getting busy. So we gave that up, and I got with Jeff Sowards and Matt Maydew, and we started Hog Molly. And that band we did a lot with that band. So, and we're still playing. The original mandolin player left that band because of a girlfriend. So, there's a ongoing issues with that, I guess, in music. But anyway, Matt Calton of the famous, kind of locally famous Calton family came in with us, and we just did a show not too long ago, and we're still playing every 3 or 4 months or so when we can find something. And then that was around 98, I guess. We put an album out in 2000, Hickadelic Jazzgrass, and it was a million seller. I got 1 million of them left, and they're in my cellar. So but yeah, it's awful. But anyway, an old friend of mine, Meredith Cisco. A lot of you know Meredith from the KSMU radio. Meredith, myself, Phil Croy, who now plays A Distant Relative, and Patty Van Wheelen had a band way back in somewhere that we were playing at Murphy's. And we were playing old 30s and 40s swing music. Phil and I just played guitar and mandolin. I think Patty played a little rhythm guitar, and Meredith, Patty, and I sang together. And it was just wonderful. So I had that association with Meredith. And so I kind of lost touch with her after she moved to West Plains. And she calls me around somewhere in 2010 and said, well, we got this little movie that we're going to do a soundtrack for. And I want to get you and some of the people I've been playing with around West Plains. And one of the people that came in was Teddy May. Well, I knew her from the old Silver Dollar City days, and I think I ended up dating her sister for a while back in the day somewhere. But she was in that group, and it was a couple other, like 3 other people from the West Plains area. And so we got together in one afternoon in Nick Sibley's studio and just put together this soundtrack record for this, what we thought was, I get these every so often. Somebody says, I'm doing a film and I want some soundtrack. Why don't you come in the studio and just, play tunes, do something, and it's always something different. And I thought it was going to be one of those deals. So we knocked this thing out in, like I said, a couple of afternoons. Well, a few months later, she calls back and she said, well, our little film just took top honors at Sundance. And I said, oh, that's really cool. And, I'd never had been a part of anything that got that far along. Then she started sending me links. They got interested in it over in Europe, and it was knocking down film festival after another. It won the Torino Festival in Italy. It won, just one after another. I can't even remember all the cities in European and even Australia, Austria, just all over the place winning these film festivals. And I thought, now it may go somewhere. And I told Meredith, I said, if this keeps going, I said, if that gets anywhere near Oscar nomination, we ought to get these guys together and actually make a band or something. There may be a chance of touring this music. And everybody said, nah, it probably won't happen. And then the next I hear it got a Golden Globe nomination. And anytime you get that close, then they're seriously starting to talk Oscar nomination. And then somebody called me up and said, you need to watch Saturday Night Live tonight. And so I did. I hadn't watched it in a really long time. I happened to be off that night, so I tuned it in, and it was Wayne's World. They had revised the Wayne's World skit for the 2011 Oscar picks, and it was Wayne's World Oscar picks. And so I tuned in, and they said, our first pick for best film is Winter's Bone. And then they made a whole bunch of bone jokes. And they made like 3 jokes in a row, running jokes about Winter's Bone. And I thought, well, if it's getting on Saturday Night Live, this is, So anyway, it came up. And so first time I'd ever watched the Oscars, and I'd never had a reason to before, So I watched it, and sure enough, it got best film. Then it kept going. It got best film, best screenplay, best actress for Jennifer Lawrence, and best supporting actor with John Hawkes. And nobody could have guessed that little, small budget film shot an hour south of here could have, gotten that far. Didn't win anything, but a nomination is almost as good as a win in that business. So not long before that, Meredith had told us about this opportunity to play at the festival in West Plains. So we said, well, we'll get together and actually learn something, because we'd never played together. I mean, when we did that studio stuff, it's like you go in, there's already stuff recorded, you just lay your part down. So the whole group of us had never actually played together. So we got together a couple of times, put together a song list for a set, a 45-minute set, and went out to West Plains to play that festival, and it was real well received and everything. So anyway, a few days after the Oscar nominations, we got a call from the production company that made the soundtrack record, and they said, would you guys like to tour this stuff? And Meredith said, oh, yeah, we'd love to. So a few months later, they came up, and it was 27 cities in 29 days in a loop, like a big figure 8 loop around the entire United States, the length of both coasts. She said, we're old, you're going to kill us. And so they broke it up into two two segments. We did a Western loop first, and then we did an Eastern loop. And to this day, that's the biggest thing I've ever done. It was playing mostly big venues. Some of them I've heard about for a long time. We got to play at the Great American Music Hall, which is the Grateful Dead's home base in San Francisco. It's where a lot of their live recording albums were recorded. And I'd heard of places like the Triple Door in Seattle, the Highline Ballroom in New York City. And so anyway, we got to take. We had a support gal that ran our merch table and kind of was general manager over thing, and then the 6 band members. And somebody coined the phrase, what was it? I'm forgetting the name, but it's something hillbilly, geriatric hillbilly U.S. World Tour. And it was that. The youngest person in the band was Teddy May, and she was, I think, 54 at the time. I was getting close to 60. Another guy was 60, and 2 of the band members were in their 70s. 2 of them were diabetics. So had this van full of old people driving around the country, and we'd pull in, and all our instruments were obviously in the back and everything. And we'd pull in, and they'd say, "What are you guys doing?" You know, it's like, "We're on tour," and they just get the biggest kick out of these old hillbillies out there in the world, you know. And it was really crazy. We'd pull into places in the motel. This happened twice, where we pulled in. We're checking out of the motel. We're getting ready to pull out, and people run out with pieces of paper and say, "We heard you were the Winter's Bone people. Would you sign this?" And it was like, I had no idea how big that little movie got in all the big population centers. We had sold out crowds at 400-seat dinner theaters in New York City and L.A. and places like that. And anyway, there's a little poster over there that shows our tour dates. And we got through all that and still liked each other at the end, which is a big thing. I think if we'd have been younger, it would have killed us, or we'd have ended up hating each other. So, but that was to date the biggest tour I've ever done, and I don't think I want to do it again. Smaller versions of it, yeah, I could do that. But anyway, just touch on a few more bands. After that, I had Shine Blind with Brandon Moore and Molly Healy and Reed Herron. Fun little group. We played a bunch of gigs. And Low Down Fancy was a real fun. It was kind of a funk band. I got back into doing electric guitar, and we ended up picking D.R. Randolph's boy, Josh, to play bass, and he's just an amazing bass player. And so we still do reunion shows with that band. A spin-off band from that is Hamburger Cows with Jeff Sowers from Hog Molly and Steve Ames, who was the singer for Lowdown. And then about 4 years ago, I think, Melinda Mullins approached me that she had discovered all of this music of her dad's. I don't know if you know the whole Johnny Mullins story. He was a janitor at Wilder Elementary, and he was a songwriter. And she told me stories. I've known Melinda since the 70s. She told me these stories about Johnny would, he didn't want to give up his day job because he loved his kids and he loved his family. He didn't want to leave them. So to push his songs, he would get an old sport coat with a whole bunch of inside pockets and load them up with cassettes, take the Friday bus to Nashville, beat the streets from Saturday and Sunday, come back Sunday night and show up at a job on Monday. And that's how he sold a lot of his songs. And he ended up having probably 70 or so Nashville performers record his stuff. He wrote Porter Wagner's first top 10 hit, which was Company's Coming, Loretta Lynn's first top 10 hit, which was Success. That song ended up being recorded by Sinead O'Connor and Elvis Costello. And then she wrote, after he wrote the one for Loretta Lynn, she asked him to write another one. So he wrote Blue Kentucky Girl. And so Loretta Lynn came out with that first, and then Emmylou got a Grammy nomination with it back in the 80s. And so just so happened that when Emmylou was here right after that Grammy nomination, we opened for her. And I had forgotten all about that, and I was going through my old stuff, and I found the poster over there Emmylou Harris with the Undergrass Boys featuring Johnny Mullins. And it's like, after all these years, and now I'm playing with his daughter. It's just another one of those coincidental weird things like that. So anyway, a new band that I'm playing with now that is giving me so much delight. This young lady right here, Emmy Higgins, she's got 4 CDs of her own original material out. And she was doing one, her most recent was 91 Acres, about this guy that bought an acreage in Douglas County, and it was junked out. The guy was a taxidermist, and there was mountains of taxidermy bones all over the place and old cars and whatever, and he was on a mission to reclaim that land and commissioned her to write a few songs about it. Well, that turned into a whole album's worth of material. So she recorded that at Rick Davidson's studio out in Nixa, and her and Rick were talking, I guess, and she said, "Well, we should just do this." So Rick said, "Well, George Horn, he played in the Undergrass Boys with us, and so he'd probably do it." And I think he decided to contact me, and so I'm getting to play with the Undergrass part of them again, and oh my God, it's just so much fun. And the songs you're writing they're all nature-based, which is what's in my heart. And a lot of it's about the Ozarks. And so anyway, that's kind of a rundown of what I'm currently doing. I'm still doing Andy M., Melinda Mullins, Hamburger Cows. Blackberry Winter hasn't played in a while, but it's just because we hadn't had an opportunity to employ a 6-piece band. It's kind of hard these days. Hog Molly still plays a few gigs. DeMullets still play a few. Howie and the Hillcats are playing more now. I've just not been able to play them with. So I've had just a wonderful, rich time in music from this town, and it is just growing better. It's the best I've ever seen Springfield be a cohesive musical community. People like Lindbergh's doing the early show, what do they call it, Musical Bob's, Wild Bob's Musical Book Club, a songwriters contest, and there's another one called Cover Me Springfield, where all the Springfield songwriters cover other Springfield songwriters. So there's just all of these just insanely good music events around the area now, if you can find them and get out to do it. But the venues are having more and more trouble keeping those going. So please tell everybody, support live music, just keep it going, because it's one of the biggest legacies we have in this area, and we don't want to see that go away.
Hey, Bo,
Yeah.
3 things. I think our audience here would get to know you even better. Ted Kaczynski, Green Berets, and Viking huts.
Well, all right then. You want to dig deep, do you?
You got that? Ted Kaczynski, Green Berets, and Viking huts.
Well, I guess a lot of that started with we did Don Brink and I did a kind of reciprocal program with the Center for Archaeological Research here. That's the contract archaeology arm of the MSU archaeology department. So we had them come out to my property, and we had a whole weekend of doing primitive things, making stone tools, making an axe, cutting down trees with it, basically making an archaeological site. Made a dwelling, we made cordage, just did all the things that a Stone Age little group would do. And in the process of that, they said, well, if you do that, we might be able to get you in on some of our archaeological digs. So for about a 10-year period, when I wasn't playing a lot of music, and that was probably 2000, around in that area, I got to work for about a 10-year span doing these archaeological digs around the area. Excuse me. And I met this guy, Jeff Tom, he was like me. He was a shovel bum, just doing a little bit here and a little bit there of what he could to keep money coming in. But he was he had I don't know what you would call it. He just made things. And you could give him an idea, and he would diagram it out and make it real, so make it into reality. So he ended up getting a contract with the Smithsonian. This was in 2000, so it was in '99, but it was the 1000th year celebration of Vikings in America. So the Smithsonian did this the Smithsonian did this big display. And they wanted a replica of a Viking log hut built to house the display in. And the outline of those huts were like 8-inch log uprights. There were like 2 here, then 2 here that were about maybe 12 by 18 or something like that. And then another 8 or 10 feet, another couple of uprights, and it had the headers going around it, and then the A-frame things, and then the mid-ridge. And that's all we had to do, but it had to be to look like it was Viking construction, which at every angle was a gusset pounded through it of a smaller chunk of wood. And the whole thing had to be what they call coped joints. So he had to engineer this thing, but with an internal structure of all thread to where it would hold together, and it was a traveling exhibit. So I worked for 2.5 months on that thing and never worked a day less than a 16-hour day, I think, because he got the contract at the last minute. So at the last 2 days were like one 24-hour day. We slept about 4 or 5 hours, and then we did a 36-hour day the day before they had to go shipped up. So I got a few days off while they were treating the logs to make them look 1,000 years old. So we got to go into the Smithsonian in the doors right as they were closing it with these big logs and set this thing up and spent the night in there. And it was just, we couldn't, our toolbox was so big we couldn't get it off of the freight elevator, so we had to leave it there, and we had to go through the dinosaur hall. And all the lights are off and everything, and that's the only place we could go. So it's like you're walking in the dark and these hulking T-Rex skeletons. It was the creepiest thing. But anyway, that led to another one. He called me a few weeks later and he said, well, I got another one. And the same guy that had hired us for that job at the Smithsonian built this big structure in New York City, or in Washington, D.C. called the Newseum. In fact, they do. It's a museum dedicated to media, and anyway, they were doing their opening show, and they wanted to do a program called Journalists and G-Men. So they're going to profile the biggest top 10 most wanted cases. So what they had was the Unabomber cabin that was on display. Actually, it wasn't in display. It was in storage in Sacramento. So we had to disassemble the Unabomber cabin, and where you couldn't tell they'd been taken apart, and fix it with this U-strut hardware, and where it could be reassembled. So for 2 weeks, I crawled around in the Unabomber cabin sawing nails, and it's the creepiest job I've ever had. So, oh yeah. The other thing I do is, he's telling me to cut it off. So, basically I help a guy that does training for the special forces. He teaches the survival instructors for the SEER school, and I've helped him for about 4 years on that. So it's a big honor. You bet. Questions?
Yes, Bo. I know you played many summers at the Ozark Celebration Festival here on campus in Missouri State, and we had wonderful gatherings of authentic historic songs. Looking at the lack of attendance at the Missouri State football stadium in the last few years, and the fact that they chose to cut the Ozark Celebration Festival this year after 19 years of existence, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I thought it was a raw deal. I don't know anything about football and don't care to. It's not a part of my existence, and I think that it's a big waste of time and money myself. I understand people love it, but yeah, and I understand it's a revenue stream, but yes, music questions. But yeah, the Ozark Celebration Festival was just a wonderful little thing, and when our current governor got in, first thing he did was cut higher education budget, and that one went out the window. So it was a really sad thing. It was coming up on our 20th year too, so it would have been a good one. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What kind of fun or terrible things were you guys doing that caused all these girlfriends to say that one of their boyfriends would be at?
Do you have to ask that question? Really?
Once you got to be 60 or so, the girlfriends didn't care.
Oh, no, they're happy. They're happy. They know there's nobody gonna run off with you or anything like that. Yeah, there was a lot of youthful indiscretion, I'll say. Anybody else? Well, I really thought a lot of my old bandmates would show up and help me remember a lot of this stuff, but then well, no, I saw that it was $12 for the lunch, and that cut out all the musicians I know. If it had been free, this place would have been full of musicians. No, all the guys I know that's the kid musicians. Everybody knows they like go to bed at 10 o'clock now and get up at 10. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Did you play at the Finley River Rock Festival?
I did not, but I was there. My friend got his nose busted by Buff Lamb himself. Yeah, it was. Do you know Kerry Hoffman? He rode in on a motorcycle, and it rained the day before, and there was mud puddles. Buff pointed to Kerry and told him to stop, and it was stopping in the mud puddles. So Kerry kind of dodged around and was going to go around it and park on the other side of the mud puddle. Buff reached out with that flashlight and got him through his helmet, cracked his nose right, and just busted it. Sent him to the doctor.
Joe Patton's usually here, but he's not here today. He took him to court.
Oh, really? Yeah, Buff busted up 3 of my parties in Ozark that my band was playing at. 3 different times, got music complaints, and Buff himself came out to shut her down. He wasn't having that business. Anybody else? Yes. Oh, I started out just being really an electric guitar player. I messed around with the acoustic when I first learned, but electric guitar was my main instrument until I discovered bluegrass. And then for the longest time, it was straight guitar. And the only reason I started playing the mandolin was because Dave left our band. Dave Wilson left, and we didn't have a mandolin player. So I had one. I'd been messing with it for a little while, and so I just started playing that. And then when I'd go to jam sessions, I noticed that there'd be 10 guitar players and maybe 4 or 5 mandolin players. So I had bought a Dobro from Doug Sheridan back in the day for a couple $100, and it had sat under my bed for years and years. And I finally got that thing out and scrubbed all the rust off of it, put new strings on it, and it sounded way better than it did when I put it away. So I started playing the Dobro, and that's mainly the instruments I play. I messed around with octave mandolin, done a little bit of the native flute, but professionally those are the 3. And I don't really have, I tried to play the banjo, but I broke myself of it because there was too many good banjo players around, and I just wasn't anywhere near what they were. Yeah, that's right. And you got to put up with all those jokes. So there was a newsletter in California when I worked from 1990 till 1992 for the University of California, Riverside. And at the time out there was an actual printed quarterly newsletter of banjo jokes. And now they're online, and there's multiple websites with all the banjo jokes.
Banned in some states.
Yeah.
The jokes,
Not the banjos. Oh, yeah. Well, my favorite of all those is how do you tell if a banjo player's on your porch, at your door? The knocking speeds up. He can't find the key. Then he don't know when to come in. All right, is that it? We'll end it on that. Thank you very much.